Hi, my name's Nathaniel from WineMarket, and we're joined from wine industry all-rounder and living legend, shall we say, Zar Brooks today. Thanks for joining us.
No problems at all, and thanks for the glass of wine.
Excellent.
Cheers.
And you. Now, do you remember the moment you fell in love with wine?
Absolutely. My young brother Ben and I were down in my father and mother's cellar at Piccadilly in the Adelaide Hills, and one of the rats from the nearby walnut farm had eaten the end off a bottle of imported Sauterne and started to get into the cork. So as all kids do, we took the bottle up to our attic and popped the cork and started to drink it. And we drank a little bit every night and hid it under the bed, and worked out by the end of the week that it didn't taste as good. So we went down and got another one, which got us on our way. And we were never ever caught, because every time Dad said, "Where did those Sauternes go?" we'd just say, "Mum took them and used them for cooking."
The lesson to that story is don't let Zar anywhere near your wine collection. And of all the wines you've tried, what's the most significant wine you've ever drunk?
The most significant wine I've ever drunk, of course, was a bottle of Elio Grasso Barolo up in the mountains of Bulgaria in the snow, because it was so good it convinced my trophy wife and winemaker Elena to take my hand in marriage. So that's without a doubt the most significant.
Very nice. If you weren't in the wine industry, what would you be doing?
I suspect I'd still be mowing the lawns of Petaluma. I'm a failed lawyer, and I really have no other talents, even in the wine industry, so I guess that'd be it. Although I have had this question once. Chester Osborne and I used to work at Darrenberg. We once decided that if it all went to hell in a handbasket, we would become bait harvesters,
Yeah.
collecting worms off the beach. Yeah. We thought we'd be quite good at that.
What do you drink when you're not drinking your own wines?
Well, I expect that, like a lot of other wine people and beverage industry professionals, that the wines that we get into most when they're not our own is champagne from France. But I like to go around to my friends' houses, especially those that might be a little bit mean with their money, go into their cellars, pull out their best bottles, and then claim innocently, "I've never tried any wines from that region or that producer." So really the best is what I want to do. And we taste and drink a lot of wines, and in any given week we'll throw out 3 or 4 dozen wine that we've just tasted. So when we go out with our own money to buy something to try, it's invariably expensive and the best of the best, because those benchmarks are what we all make wine for.
Absolutely. What's the most rewarding part of being in the wine business?
That's pretty easy. That is to, without, and it sounds so cynical and so cliche, but without a doubt, to actually, my father said as a child, the greatest joy he ever had was to plant a tree, watch it grow, chop it down and burn it in the fireplace. And you don't chop a vineyard down, but the greatest joy is to work on vineyards that you've either saved because they're very old or that you've planted yourself, and then to see them evolve over time, and to really to be able to taste that little moment in time and place.
Now, you've been involved with Wirra as a director, Darrenberg.
Wirra, Darrenberg. Well, a work experience mainly in both of those places. Yeah.
You've got Dandelion and Zontes.
Zontes, yeah.
So what's the wine you're most proud of?
I think all producers are always looking for the next great wine. And Brian Crozer once said that a winemaker's lucky to make 1 or 2 great wines in their lives. I think great wine, often, like any other field of greatness in human endeavour, is difficult to assess at the time. But like great art or great music, it tends to be defined by the fact that you can recognise when and where it was produced. So the wine that I'm most proud of is probably the wines that people can recognise when and where they were from.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, you're a winemaker, a marketer.
I'm not a winemaker, I'm not a winemaker, none of those things. I'm a typist that drinks, ostensibly. And even my business card of my wife's wine company says my role is to be advised.
Okay, because I'm going to say, you refer to yourself as a sophist?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain where that term comes from?
Well, I'm a failed lawyer, and the sophists of Greece, the original sophist from which the word sophisticated came, took money in some cases, took money to argue cases and to argue people's positions. So the word sophisticated was originally had more than one meaning. So being a wine sophist is, I tend to help wine companies with their wine styles and their wine brands and their presentation, their labels and their back labels and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes I ask them to pay me for it, so that's where it
Have you ever had a really good practical joke played on you in the winery?
Well, there's almost too many to mention, but the one that does spring readily to mind, as I'm reminded of it constantly, is I was working at Darrenburg in the winery, and we had some important Japanese wine buyers who were coming in that afternoon with their translator. So, of course, all morning I was getting a bit of stick from the boys and girls in the winery, and I'd put on a bit of a new work shirt to impress these people. Chester Osborne was away, and they spent all morning getting me wet with wine, you know, red wine in the middle of vintage. So by the time these poor Japanese arrived, I was just covered in wine. And there was a couple of bees that were following me around as well. So I'm doing a quick winery tour, and some blokes had turned up in a van who come around to set the rat traps and, you know, the pest away guys. And two of the boys in the winery had convinced them, or I don't know if they convinced them, had helped themselves in the van to 2 spacesuits with the biohazard things on the top and the helmets. And in the middle of my big presentation and talking, came in making lots of signals, which of course frightened me and the Japanese to some great extent. So that was probably, that's the most memorable, and I still meet people to this day. I said, I remember that day. Japanese people.
Now, if you could drink with anyone in history, who would it be?
I'm very lucky. I have been able to drink with some people that I would consider some people I'd give anything to go and have another glass of wine with, and that's of course great Len Evans. But interestingly, from recent readings, the person I would like to drink with in history is Attila the Hun, who had a lot to do with inventing the fork or the 3-prong knife, and drank himself from a humble wooden bowl because he was assured of not being killed by his loyal subjects. But a very interesting man in food and wine.
Brilliant.
There you go.
What do you want people to experience when they drink your wines?
You know, I think when people taste wine is that wine's there for fun and for drinking, and I would never want everyone in the wine industry. We take wine incredibly seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And all we'd really hope is that each and every time someone opens a bottle, they take a moment to consider, you know, have a quick smell and have a consider where it comes from and how it was produced. And if that happens 1 in every 2 or 3 bottles, then we're really happy.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what's the future hold for Zar Brooks?
Look, the future holds. I've just had my trophy wife and I, and she's my trophy wife because of the number of wine trophies she wins, have just had our firstborn, but little baby Encho. He's 5 months old today.
Congratulations.
So he's just 7.5 years from taking over the family business. So I'm hoping that he can hold on till then.
Excellent.
Well, at least I can anyway.
Brilliant. Well, Zar Brooks, thank you for joining us today.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.